everybody. It is so good to have you here with me. Imagine
if you have your vision as the car with the right team.
Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years, 6, 3 months. This morning is all about the leadership and influence. It's that time, it's that time, it's that time, it's that time, it's that time. It's that time of the morning again. This is the Inside Show with Carl Hendricks, your host. I'm so glad that you are online with me here today again on this wonderful podcast. It's so good having you every single time with me. I want you, please, if you don't mind, I want you to be a regular. I want you every time to subscribe or get more people online to subscribe, and then you hit that bell, because every time when I come on, you will know that I am online. I've got a wonderful guest with me here, but I'm just going to mention a name, and later on I've got a person here by the name of Pastor Lee-Ann Gonsalves with me in the studio here today, and we're going to unpack a rather serious, wonderful, serious discussion. I tell you, people were inboxing me when they noticed the index or the title, The Sex Revolution. And the question that we're going to ask today is simply, how single are you? Well, that's something to think about, because some people claim that they are single, but when we unpack the program today, you must make your mind really up for yourself. Are you single, or are you not really single? So with me in the studio here today, we've got Pastor Lee-Ann Gonsalves. I would love to, if you don't mind, just to introduce herself. And I'm just so glad when I made a call to and I asked her, please come on my show, because I know she will be able to add wonderful value to the show if it comes to relationships. And besides that, she's young and beautiful, and I look good on the show here this morning with her. Pastor Lee-Ann Gonsalves, good morning and a warm welcome to you, and thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you, Pastor Carl. Dr. Carl. It is a privilege. I'm usually on the other side of this screen, so it's so much more comfortable there. I'm a fan of your show. I've clicked the button. I've subscribed, so I get to experience you guys in all your different shows, and I'm so chuffed to be on the Inside Show.
Yeah, tell me a little about yourself. I know your hubby is a regular on my show. I didn't have him in a month's time, but he was here for 1 month. I could see him every single week and a little more. So Leanne is the wife to a wonderful pastor, Paul Gonsalves, but in her own right, she's also pastoring with him in the ministry and running, of course, another aspect of ministry, because it's all about gifting. So tell us a little about yourself and your gifting, and where's God using you?
I do have a heart for women, like most women pastors. Pastor Joan can definitely attest to that, for the wonderful work that you guys do here at Crystal. But I think my heartbeat also lies with relationships and women and children and in people in vulnerable situations. Because I always feel like we should be a voice to those that don't have a voice. So we should stand up for those that, that struggle in certain aspects. It's really just a call of ministry, like you said. Great. And also I love being a supportive pastor. I love being part of our congregation, and I love leading as well. So,
wonderful.
And I enjoy the lessons that God has taught me throughout the years, and He has enabled much in me. So I'm super grateful, and look, I'm on the Inside Show today.
Okay, you're a mom. How many kids do you have? Tell us a little about them.
I have 3 kids, and they keep us busy. They are adorable, and I was saying to your son earlier on, they actually teach us more lessons than we signed up for learning. But it's all part of the molding and the shaping that God does in our lives, and it's fun and crazy all at the same time.
That's great. Wonderful. How long are you married now?
12 years this year.
Oh my God, Xavier, my son is married 7 years, and they were celebrating 7 years, and you already on 12. I said to Anka, you chasing me, because you just shortly behind me. She was really laughing about that. She said, oh no, I'm not chasing you, not by a close call. Let's get into the show here this morning, and thank you again. We're talking about sex revolution. I made a mistake earlier on typing, and my producer said to me, instead of typing sex revolution, I type sex revelation. But I guess it's the same thing. We're going to have some kind of revelation about sex revolution here this morning. If I don't know if you know that back in the day, as early as the 60s, this whole movement started. And that nothing really starts without a movement. Anything and everything starts with a movement. And sometimes things start so innocently and so small, but quickly it goes out of spiral, and before you know, it's out of control. But in 1960, they started really with the sex revolution up to the early 1980s. And for those that's young there, you don't know, but what you see today as a norm was really a fight back in the day. And the sex revolution was really weird in some countries. It took off in some countries. There's always this controversial about culture and the social movement around this whole sex revolution. The question that we're asking here this morning is simply this. And we're talking about singleness. And if you sit on the other side of this mic here and you're in your comfort of your house or wherever you watch this, you'll say, yeah, I'm single. But now the thing that we're really going to address here is around singleness and sex revolution. How single are you really? Now, there's nothing wrong right from the beginning to mention to you, there's nothing wrong with singleness. Some people prefer to go through life all by themselves. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that as well. And some people claim that they are single. And that's the other side that we want to unpack a little bit here today around singleness and how single you are. Now, let's get into the segments that we're going to discuss. We're going to do 4 segments, and because I want to hook you early because I don't want you to go anywhere. The first one, we're going to talk about loneliness, and I'm going to invite Pastor Leanne just into that subject soon, and then the second one in the segment will be sexual liberation. Then the implication of these behaviors. So if you have a sexual behavior, what's the implications around that? And then the choice to say single and the choice of purity. So there are certain choices, but what the world are doing, and we are driving a strong narrative, and we don't make any excuses about the narrative. We are here to unpack. We are here. I must just say, I don't even feel embarrassed to discuss the subject because I did this book somewhere in November last year. So I'm really in the subject. I did my research, and I think I understand the subject well. I'm not per se a good counselor. I don't see myself as a good counselor, but in any case, let's get to loneliness and singleness. So Pastor Lee-Ann Gonsalves, tell me, is there a difference between loneliness and singleness, and what's your take on loneliness, and is there a possibility that people, because of loneliness, engage in something, or people go to the extreme of loneliness? Just share a little about loneliness.
Yeah, I think the common culture that we have in this day and era, they often make it synonymous, but it's in 2 entirely different things. Singleness would be a decision. Well, if you wanted that to be your decision, it would be a decision to be by yourself for a period of time. And loneliness is almost an imposition. It's something that people suffer through. People never said, I'm happy being lonely, but people have said, I'm happy being single. So there is a differentiation that I think we must make there. Loneliness is not always something that people pursue, but singleness can be something people pursue.
There are people that they simply cannot go all by themselves. And it doesn't mean, and this is where we really want to define this word loneliness. It doesn't mean that when you're lonely, that you must have a relationship.
Yes.
Because you can be in a relationship and also be lonely within that relationship.
Yes,
there's a possibility for that. So all I'm saying at the end of the day, you are sitting on the other side and you feel lonely for wherever you are. Never ever venture into something just because of loneliness.
Yes.
Just because you're all by yourself. Now, to go to solitary confinement, you can end up in jail, and you are with other inmates. It's still okay.
Yeah.
Till something happened and they put you all by yourself in a deep, dark hole.
Yeah.
And that is what they call solitary confinement. And then they know the punishment of being lonely. And truly, some people are so lonely, and you can be lonely even in a relationship.
Yeah, you can.
You can be lonely even in a marriage. You can be lonely in a room full of people.
Yeah.
So can you define that for me? What experience do you have with people around loneliness?
I think loneliness, people don't identify the source of their loneliness. So they find that if I attach myself to another human being, then I won't be lonely because by the very definition of it, I will have company. But loneliness is an internal thing. It's actually a matter of the heart. You can be loneliness because there is a brokenness inside of you. There can be loneliness because there's something that is unfulfilled inside of you, which causes the loneliness. So people don't often go right to the root. Instead, they seek attachment so that they can redefine the position because they somehow feel that will solve the problem, but it doesn't. Not if that's not the problem.
It is almost like a hole in your heart. It could
is.
be one of many reasons. So some people most probably were raised by a single parent. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
And there's this void of having a man in their lives because they were raised without a dad.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. And they don't address the issue of that void, that emptiness.
Yes.
So they think the more relationships they attract, the better it is for them.
Yes.
So in short, we just wanted to understand what that is all about. So loneliness and singleness is not the same thing. So when somebody is single, it doesn't mean the person is lonely. We just want to define that right from the beginning, because sometimes people think that singleness is loneliness, and people look at a person like, don't you have a boyfriend?
Yeah.
Or don't you have are you not married or something? No, there's nothing wrong with me. The truth is there are people that prefer to be single.
Yeah, like being by yourself is somehow an imposition. When you are in fact, you should learn to be your best company, because you're stuck with yourself for so many, you're stuck with yourself until the end of your days. Loneliness is also, I think, something that people can make other people feel ashamed about being. It's like you alone, you unattached, there's nothing. So it's almost like a stigma.
People
that
feel sorry for you when you
Yes, like a pity tends to follow you.
And it's not that you are. I know a lot of men and women. They're not in a relationship.
Yeah.
And they're all by themselves. And people perceive that they're lonely.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not lonely. I'm okay. I'm good. Others are involved with studies. Others are involved with traveling.
Yes.
Others experience life. Others are doing different things. And there's nothing wrong with them. But people enjoy putting some kind of label on you.
No, it's true. I've actually made a deliberate decision when someone tells me that they're single. I almost encourage them. I'm like, that's wonderful. You don't know what phase of life you're in. This is going to be excellent, but be a good single person.
Yes.
Enjoy it in its fullness. It's not a default position.
Yes.
It's your position right now.
Pastor Leanne, let's get to the stuff that it's really hot for other people. It's like, ooh, sexual liberation and sexual trends. We're going to discuss a little about sexual trends and sexual liberation here. And this is the issue that we want to address about, are people truly single? And that's the question that we ask. Are you truly single? Because people claim that they're single.
Yeah.
And now I'm waiting for Mr. Right. But while they wait for Mr. Right, they are experiencing a sexual liberation kind of, they indulge themselves in sexual activities and claim to be single. So this is what we want to bring across. So I just want to put a record straight right from the beginning on the Inside Show here. We're coming from a Christian perspective.
Yes.
We're not pushing this narrative down everyone's throat. All I'm saying, hey man, if you're a church man and a church girl, I want to know, how deep do you serve him?
Yes.
And how single are you? Because some reckon that they're single. Now, my producer mentioned something in yesterday in our discussion. I cannot even remember. We so many discussions here. She said that you find people, they don't want to discuss the sexual aspects.
Yeah.
But they prefer doing it. So they exercise the practicality of it, but they don't want to do the theory. This is the theory.
Yes.
But so they play this whole thing. No, I'm good. Everything is fine. I'm looking for Mr. Right. But underneath, there is no one looking for Mr. Right. There's a lot of Mr. Rights.
There's a lot of
now, Leanne, if tell me the opposite of Mr. Right, what will that be? If you're looking for a Mr. Right and a man looking for a lady, what will that be? A Mrs. Right, a Miss Right. Mr. Right and
you want to find the right person to make Mrs. Right.
Yes. So what's really happening here are people really, really single, and that's what we're getting to. And I'm gonna sound like an old preacher here, saying the same thing over and over, like a scratch LP. For those that don't know, maybe a DVD. But all I'm saying at the end of the day, you claim that you're single, but you're sexually active.
Yeah.
So you are really sleeping around.
Yeah.
And how single are you? So that's the things that we want to discuss here. So the first one we want to discuss is open relationships. So this share a little about open relationships.
Oh, I like the way that you said that, are you really single? Because I think in your discussions and your approach, you've actually identified that there are categories of singleness now. And so one of these that you're mentioning is being in open relationships is a category of singleness. So that people can still officially say, I'm single, but I'm in an open relationship. So I'm still within the defined terms, basically. Well, you have an open relationship means you have one primary partner, but you have other intimate partners or other sexual partners.
Yeah, it means like, you know what? I'm in an open relationship.
But
I exercise sexual activities also with other men and other women.
Yes.
I must be very careful here because I don't want to sound sexist here.
Yeah, you have to say both.
I need to mention both.
Yes.
Because now the ladies will come for me and say, okay, it's not just ladies, it's men as well.
Put the fire on the comments, ladies.
I like it when they blame the ladies, and because it's always like, because it's the lady that's pregnant.
Yes.
And it's the lady that looks bad, and it's the lady. So the man, they always paint the man as if he's the sincere, innocent guy with the tie and the suit.
Yeah.
But the lady is the bad one. She's the bad one.
Yeah.
The truth is, both are bad because it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
And
They suffer different penalties and different consequences. And I think as women, there's a greater responsibility required of us because we invariably sit with a greater portion of the consequence. And men, I suppose, in a different respect, maybe down the line, with being supportive or doing what they need to do. So it's different, and we just need to balance our relative responsibilities that emanate from which sex you are or which gender you are.
So I don't want to label things number 1, 2, 3, and 4 as we go down, but the first one we discuss now is open relationship. So the meaning of an open relationship is I'm seeing a primary person or partner, but I have other sexual partners.
Yeah.
So the person is involved with other people as well. The second one is a word that you enjoy that we've made up here, situationship.
Yeah, I do quite
It's a word it's current, and it's also a trending word here, situationships. So what is situationships, Pastor Gonsalves?
Well, I want to just put on note that this word you're going to find in the Oxford Dictionary soon because Dr. Carl is going to get it in there. But situationships is when two people spend a lot of time together. They text and communicate on a very regular basis. They could even be intimate and have sex, but they don't describe themselves as being in a relationship. They don't go on dates, and they don't introduce each other to their personal lives or people who are meaningful in their lives. So it's just a situation that arises because of an agreement that they have, and there's no underlying richness of relationship.
Yes. Now, if you involved in this, so for those watching now, we're discussing really the subject here around, are you really single? That's the thing that we're asking, because a lot of people claim that they are single. But why must I marry if I'm sexually involved?
Yes.
Why must I marry? And you know what's happening these days, and really, I'm not coming down on any person there. A lot of people make mistakes in life, they through pregnancy and so many other things. I'm not negative on anyone this morning.
Yeah.
All I'm saying, there's a new trend these days. I don't want to marry, I just want a child. And because of this new way of sperm donation, I can just get a donation somewhere or bank my sperm or do whatever is needed.
Yeah.
And there's
I can do it my way.
I can do it my way. But what we're really discussing here this morning, I'm not going to be hard on somebody that's not serving Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'm not on you. You can do what you want because you're a sinner. That's what you are. But when you are a Christian, and when you're in the kingdom of God, there should be some rules around you. You cannot just say I'm single, but you're in a situation.
Yeah, no, but I like the distinction you made because there are different ways of having relationships. We have a worldly way and we have God's way, and I think that because we are so intertwined with with the world's ways, we very often, without schooling our younger people, they are very often being influenced to such a great extent that they fall in line with the worldly standard instead of us, being stronger on our things. So I enjoy this narrative that you're speaking about. I enjoy the show because it reintroduces that there must be a standard in terms of your personal relationships with people. So these situationships happen because I see it happening, with my peers and, in my communities, I see it happening. So then things become lesser. It doesn't become as serious, or it doesn't become as stern anymore.
But Pastor Gonsalves, this thing really started in the 60s, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
Right in the 60s. So when a movement starts, everyone is up in arms against this movement.
Yeah.
Good or bad, it doesn't matter. But later on, it turns out being a norm. Like when you switch your television on, things turn out being just a norm. So you sit there with your kids. Back in the day when television just came in, I was young and handsome in 1976. So that was the first time Hasdas and Discuss and all those things started on TV.
Yeah.
So these programs were not rife. It wasn't freely available. It was very selective. It was during the apartheid. A lot happened now after the internet revolution, literally.
Yeah.
And everything is available. It's on your phone. It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's exposure.
But what I'm driving here, there's a narrative out there.
Yes.
There's a worldly narrative that's louder than a spiritual narrative.
Very.
And our voice is so minimized that when we do a show like this, people are up in arms and say, from where are you? Is this your real world? And they say the Bible is old school. They need to rewrite certain stuff in the Bible. The fact remains, you cannot change certain moral values. It is what it is. And that's what we try to address here this morning about how single are you. So I'm here to challenge men and women out there, that's Christians, that's involved with sex outside.
Yeah.
And then they claim that they're single. So you might just say, yeah. So are you actually saying that when I'm in a relationship that I can have sex, so then I'm not single?
Yeah.
It's also not what I'm saying. So we're addressing this narrative here this morning, the claim of singleness. In all fairness, there are some women and some men that feels like, mostly more women, that feels like, where's the man? They're not in church. And why there's not a big pool of men to pick from.
Yeah.
And that is not easy. It's also hard on them.
And it's also true that there are more women than men. But I just want to touch on something that you said there, in terms of. I like the fact that you're drawing our attention to the fact that we have to evaluate our singleness as believers, because we have to actually ascertain, have the lines been this gray for me that I've allowed a situationship in my life because I've just kind of let it be because I see it happening around me so often. So it does cause us to pay attention to the fact that we need to evaluate our relationships and happen more deliberately. And you also mentioned that the Bible is out of fashion, and it's seen as old school, but those are the cultural references that are old school. What is still new is the principles and the values, and that is what we see being eroded and eaten away at, is that you're breaking down a principle, you're breaking down a value, and you yourself are seeing the fruit. People want to take God out of the situation, but you can do that and you can still evaluate the fruit of what you are doing in your life. It will just end in a way that is not beneficial for you, even for the other person. And I think that's crucial, because they don't evaluate, why am I behaving this way? It's because something inside of me needs to be repaired. And that's what causes these situationships. It's a weaker choice.
Yes.
God's choice is the better choice.
Yes. And you know what? If we don't have shows like these,
Yes.
you will find that a new culture started shaping within the kingdom of God.
Yes.
A culture of acceptance. That it should be just like that. There's nothing you can do about it. And the culture is built slowly but surely. You mentioned something on Netflix earlier. What was that you mentioned?
I want to get the name right, and it is Neosexual, the Neosexual Revolution.
Okay.
It was basically a documentary of the extent of what is happening. And it's quite a degradation, I think, in society, that we can be that liberal, that we can cross so many personal boundaries and enter into such, very frivolous behavior. And it happens on a seasonal basis. The context of it is that there's spring break, where tons of young kids between the ages of, probably 19 to probably 25.
Maybe younger, yeah.
Yes, possibly. And they come in and they just engage in unhealthy sexual behavior, and how this is called a liberation, but it's actually a corruption of even of themselves. And it's extraordinary to see the extent of it, and also from a different perspective for us to evaluate, is this the society that we are actually living and engaging in? It's quite alarming.
And because of this sex revolution,
Yes.
I recall somebody in our church at some point, she divorced her husband, and then she called herself free now.
Yes.
I know why she called herself free, because she's sleeping around now. So she was tired of just this one partner, and she wanted liberation. It's because there's the trending, that's the in thing. It happens at work, in companies, people travel together, they work somewhere up in Africa, Europe, in the West, and then they start sleeping amongst one another, and they come home and wipe their face as Christians, and wipe their face and go to their partner as if nothing happened.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. You know what? It's not actually, for me, what I believe, that they're not looking for a sexual liberation. They're looking for liberation from responsibility almost. And our responsibility to, responsibility to our covenant, responsibility to our community. People want to get away from that responsibility. There's a surgence of people wanting to be so casual about everything. But casual is a momentary thing. You enjoy everything about being casual in that moment. But covenant, we enjoy things as we grow. And we, the one experience that we have is not the end game. We have a journey inside of us of richness and something that bears fruit. And casual, you just have this instant gratification all the time. And I think that's what culture is pushing onto us. And so we have that kind of experiences that people crave.
I hear somebody on the other side say, tell me more about the sexual behaviors and stuff. Let's talk about friends with benefits, because I'm single. That's
Yes.
what they claim. But there's friends with benefits. What is friends with benefits? It's like, you know what? I ring my friend up and say, hey, borrow me a 3,000 rand here. I just want to do something quickly. I'll give you back next month. What is this friends with benefits all about?
Yeah, I would also prefer that benefit. But the friends of benefits in the social, in the dating sphere and the singleness sphere, is a friend with benefits is where one or two people are physically intimate with one another and without being committed in any other way.
Yes.
So we describe the relationship as platonic, but we engage in things that are not platonic, and then we pretend that it didn't happen. But that's the benefit.
Yes. So you two friends will visit somewhere, and they say, no, we're friends. We're just friends. And all of us know they're friends. Yeah. And they come and visit at your house, and at night they sleep together.
Yeah. Well, the urge comes on and they just give in.
The friends with benefits. I don't know this claim that I'm single. So what we're really addressing here today for everyone watching on the Inside Show, we're addressing this issue around, are you really single? Now, I'm not on people that's not Christians.
Yeah.
And I'm on people that confess and profess that they have Jesus Christ as Lord and as a personal Savior. They believers. They born again. But I tell you, there's a lot of pastors out there. They don't want to discuss this. It's like, no, not in my church. I said, oh yeah, really? People are people. You preach to them for 45 minutes on a Sunday, but you don't know what they do.
And the benefits.
So the friends with benefits. Another one is mixing friendship and with sexual intimacy. As a matter of fact, there's a friend with benefits. Let's talk about no strings attached relationship.
Yeah, that is so, I think, on culture at the moment, because we operate with a lot of convenience, in our day-to-day life. And so this no strings attached relationships would refer to a relationship that you're sexually intimate in, but that's as far as your relationship goes. You're not committed in any other way. Sometimes you don't even owe that person a conversation or a call. It's just, that's what it is.
There's no strings attached.
No strings attached.
So no strings attached could also be a kind of you get into a bar or get into a club, or you get into
one-night stand
like
culture.
A one-night stand thing, and then there's no strings attached. You're just hanging loose. Now you mentioned something earlier around this movie that's on Netflix. And it's in South Africa rife as well, because there's a time that when the matriculants go to Durban,
Yeah.
or I don't know where they go, but they go somewhere.
They go.
And the parents are so like, oh, my child is just going to for a fun time. You don't know what's happening on those beaches and stuff like that. It's rough and tumble. And we almost probably later in the show, and I'm really enjoying what we do here, because we're going to address some issues later in the show. But things happen on these retreats or camps or hanging loose. What do you call it? The parties, the after matric party.
Yeah.
Things
After
happen.
parties.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot happening there. Let's talk about something that people would say, oh my God, must you introduce this as well? How single are you? So we're on the sexual aspects here, the sexual revolution. And we're talking about sex toys here. That is one of the things that people claim they're single. So we're not saying the sex toys are good, or we're not saying it's bad.
Yeah, we're saying that they exist.
It exists. And you know what? When you travel up to the studio on the road,
Yeah.
you will see people don't care anymore. There's adverts right there on the road, on the poles,
Yeah.
big ones that advertise the adult stores, adult shops.
Yeah.
They don't make any mince about that anymore. I was laughing. This really happened. So I was in a flight one day. I don't know where it was. Was it a long distance flight, a short distance flight? It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
And we could hear a sound from the cabin on top, like a vibration sound.
I'm not sure when to hear the end of the story.
And you know what? The lady jumped up. She said, "It's my toothbrush. It's my electric toothbrush." It's like, oh my God, what an embarrassing moment! It's like,
Oh, wow.
I like to watch stuff like that because I preach about it, and I
Okay.
use it as backdrop and illustrations in my sermons, and I write about it. And it's just
Shame,
like,
she probably blushed so bad. I think if I was, I would show everyone, it is my toothbrush.
It is my toothbrush. Well, she didn't do that. Whatever she switched off there was private, and she switched it off. But for us, it was a toothbrush, an electric toothbrush, a battery-operated toothbrush. So we're talking about sex toys here. So some people claim that they are single, but they satisfy themselves in many ways. So they satisfy themselves sexually, and there's a lot of sex toys. And I'm not here to promote any one of those. But all I'm saying is like we're addressing the issues around sex toys that's available and how single are you. So is it then so hard? So somebody will sit there and say, oh, do you say that when I serve Jesus that I cannot even have sex? It's like, oh my God, what's your conviction, and what's God telling you? How far do you push this whole thing? Because when is sin? That's a question that we ask now.
Yeah.
It's like, must I sit there and wait? And that's the issue that we will do at a later point. But what you don't know, there's a narrative out there
Yeah.
that would love you to believe. There's a narrative that would love you to believe that that's a norm.
Well, they want to push it as a norm,
Yeah.
and there will be different types of people that would use sex toys or would procure sex toys. It would you could be in a healthy relationship as a man and a woman in a covenant relationship. You could be single, or you could be maybe a bit too curious in a way that is not healthy, and it could perpetuate certain unhealthy behaviors in you. It could also be like a gateway into things like you write in your book about pornography and unhealthy behavior. And I think that we mustn't underplay the mental aspect of it. It becomes a stronghold. It can become a stronghold, and it can become almost an addiction, and it can inform your behavior. And if you a single person, because this is we're speaking about it relevant to single people. If you a single person, and I can appreciate the reasoning it is. It's like, I don't want to sin, so I'll use this concession, to help me through a difficult physical period. But you should always look at it as what it will open yourself up to, and whether that would be healthy for you.
What's the possibilities that can open yourself up to?
You mentioned that there's an adult shop here. I think having seen that sign, maybe you sparked there was an interest sparked. You could say, well, let me go and see. When you go and see there, it's not just one sex toy on a shelf. There would probably be a host of other things that could open up your mind or redirect you into certain material that is not necessarily meant for your good and meant for your health. And I think that's where it becomes, unhealthy and very dangerous.
Do you think the danger of self-satisfaction place a marital life also in danger? Like the person is so addicted to sex toys in singleness.
Yes. No, it's
that when they get to
definitely.
marriage, they don't get that same satisfaction.
No,
Or
definitely.
most probably, it depends on people's sex drives, because
It
male
does.
and female have different sex drives, and almost probably the one party will have a stronger than the other party. Either or,
Yeah.
it's irrelevant. But it can also have a negative impact later on in your life
It
as an
will.
addiction early in your life.
It does, and it is something that you'll have to deal with. Marriage is it's a beautiful path, but it is a path. It's a journey of becoming one. And before we get married, we were on two different life trajectories, and we were also on we had two different past life experiences. So what you do in your singleness is gonna come out in your marriage. If you invested in making yourself a good single person, and I don't mean good in a dogmatic kind of way, good in terms of wholesome, you developing yourself, you're healthy about certain things, your marriage will get the fruit of that. But if you're unhealthy and you're dedicating yourself to substance abuse and sex toys and all sorts of unhealthy behaviors, when you get married, that will converge. And it will create some kind of a friction, and it will give you something to deal with in your marriage. So I think that's why being single, you have to be responsible in your singleness. And then you can say you were single, but like you say, how single were you?
And there's nothing wrong to go out on date nights, because how will you get to your hubby?
Yes.
And how will you get to your future wife,
Yes.
for that matter? And also, there's nothing wrong to stay single and go out on lunch and dinners and stuff like that. But how far do you push it? And that's the question
Yes.
at the end. Because most movies that you watch, the first night of the date night, they end up either at the guy's house or the
Yeah.
or the lady's house.
And that happened so fast.
And it happens so fast, and then before they know it, they attach.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about long distance play. So singleness, you can sit in the comfort of your house and of your flat or your flatlet or where you live, and there's a long distance play. Let's share a little about that.
Well, that would indicate sexual activity using apps that can connect the different toys that people use. The truth is that people are already using video and voice communication platforms to engage in shared masturbation experiences. So that's quite something. You'll have to speak a lot into that.
Yeah. Okay. So the long distance play is the one partner is on the other side.
Yeah.
There's no attachment. The partner could be in Brazil, for that matter, or the partner could be in India.
And these people are not necessarily in a relationship.
They're not necessarily in a relationship, but remember, they're single.
Yes.
And they're single, but they satisfy themselves by either a live stream or they call it long distance play. And they satisfy one another. It could be through talk, it could be touching one another, it could directing one to the other.
Yeah.
So when you go into that, you realize that how single are you really? Because it's like, oh, my boyfriend is in Brazil.
Yeah.
So when did you see him? Never. How long are you have this relationship? 5 years. It's
Yeah.
like, so how single are you really? So what we really say, and this is the sexual revolution. These things are rife. It's all around. It's in our face. It's a daily thing. And when you do the research, you will be shocked to see what's out there on the market for single
No,
people.
it's crazy. And you know what many of these streams have in common is, and I've noticed that that's what happens online, is that people enjoy the anonymity of a lot of things that they do. You know, they like doing things. You can say, people say the most horrible things online because they know they're anonymous and there's no consequence to the behavior. So the emergence of things like long distance play, it's a cultural thing that just emanates from that anonymity. Because if you are anonymous, like you say, your boyfriend in Brazil that you've never ever met. It's an anonymous thing. No one's going to come and chastise you. No one's going to know about it. It's something that can be kept in secret. And it's something that you can nurse, and it's something that you can engage in, whether it's healthy or not.
Hookups. So we own a lot of stuff here.
Yeah,
I cannot tell you how
hookups.
many stuff that we discussed here already. But we try to cover all possibilities and stuff that people are involved with. So these hookups happens totally unplanned, and they socially driven.
Yeah.
So it just happened that they hook up for one reason or the other, and it happens. Hookup could also be a one night stand, isn't it? So
Yeah.
and a hookup can also be you can get involved with a hookup without a condom. And then you end up with a baby with a father that you don't even know or like or love, and
Yeah.
you made a baby out of that. For me, to make a baby is something special. You don't just go make babies with everybody and anybody, because the value, the DNA is carried in that baby. The behavior pattern of the other person is, it's like the two parties come together, and out of that, the beauty of life comes forth. Sounds like a preacher now, right?
But that's the
hookups,
value.
yeah.
That's the value of it. But people who engage in hookup culture, they don't subscribe necessarily to that value system. It's all temporary, and I like the fact that you've mentioned there that there's the use of alcohol and drugs. So you get they are almost catalysts, or they almost affect the outcome of the evening. If you're going to go out and you're going to indulge in all those types of substances, the evening would have ended differently had you been sober the entire time, because the sober mind makes different decisions. So I like the fact that you've mentioned that hookups don't necessarily happen in a sober environment. They happen in a charged environment. There's music, there's lights, there's scantily dressed people. It's all different. The environment is designed for you to end up.
I always watch a movie with a different view.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the angle of approach. I always watch sometimes I'm too technical watching a movie. Sometimes I don't enjoy a movie.
Yeah, it's not like my husband.
I'm way too technical watching. It's like, I don't like the storyline of this movie. This is not a good storyline. The people there's no effort in
and
it.
he researches the movie while we're watching it. I'm like, just watch it.
I'm not that good with it.
So I know your kind.
So hookups is like, in most movies, this is how they sell it. You will not think they're selling a narrative, because I watch narratives. When I watch a movie, I watch segments, how the movie starts, what's happening, what's the storyline.
Yeah.
But what is it that they sell in this movie? The movie might have one title, but they sell something else in the movie.
Yeah.
So let me give you a typical example. So this girl most probably had a tough day, and at work they fired this girl at work. So she doesn't know what to do, and she started drinking in her little hotel room, or at her house or flat, wherever she lives. And then she decides, okay, I'm just going out for the evening.
Yeah, to make myself feel better.
Yeah, because that's going to let me feel better. And while she's there, she indulged in another drink and another drink and another drink. The narrative that they sell there? Another guy push up next to her at the bar, say, hey, I'm James, or I'm Peter, or I'm Paul. And then
No, not Paul.
or not Paul, anyone else.
James,
not Paul.
yeah.
James is okay. So because your husband's name is Paul. So then the person pushed up closely. And then before you know it, she goes like half drunk to her own little flat with this guy that she doesn't know from a bar of soap.
Yeah.
And that's the narrative that they sell.
Yeah, and I haven't watched that movie, but I've watched 100 movies like that.
It's all of them have this.
everywhere.
It's the same narrative. It's the same thing. It is like, you know what they sell, what you don't know. They sell a concept. They say, if you have a bad day, you take a drink and you go
hook
sleep. Yeah, you hook up. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Because that will relieve you. And that will let you feel different, completely different. Well, I don't know. At this point in time, I'm going to ask Leandra to come into the studio, because we want to do a little about applications on behaviors. So when you in this type of behavior, you are single, but you behave in this whole vault of sexual revolution.
Yeah.
You're literally swimming in there, and we touch on almost everything. Yeah. There's about only 5 that I didn't mention that's in my book that's about to come, but it's similar. So there's a reason why I preferred not to even mention this. But now this is this person, the single person, swimming now in this whole vault, this whole reservoir of sex revolution.
Yeah.
And they feel that they are all right. And we want to discuss a few things around what's the implications. And before we get towards the closure, the closing of the show, can you believe we're already in 45 minutes? And it's
No,
like
I didn't feel it at all.
Because when you have fun, it's always good.
Right.
And that's why the single ladies tell you, it's fun to have sex. God created sex, and it is fun.
Yes.
But God never, it's like
Balance.
food. Food is good. but overeat and see what happens.
Yes,
Anything is
unhealthy.
good. There's a lot of things, but the way the world is reacting to
Yeah,
all
we're all
these.
overeating.
Well, I want Leandra just to come in there on. We're going to discuss a little about the issues about the ripple effect, the
Or the
implications.
implications,
Yeah,
the consequences.
The consequences is a better word to use there in your behavior, because most people it's like the way they advertise something. It's like they advertise the most probably whiskey in a nice whiskey glass.
Yeah, it's always romanticized.
It's very smart. It's like so nice.
Yeah.
And then or they sell the car, but there's a girl with a bikini. It's like. Is that in the package? I would love to have that car. Does it come with a package?
Or back in the day when they used to advertise cigarettes in the movies.
Yeah.
And those magnificent Peter Stuyvesant advertisements. It was wonderful.
It's
man.
like it looks cool, eh?
Extraordinary.
It's so. Let's talk about the behavior and the implication around that. So we're gonna discuss about the health issue. What's the health implication about this behavior? Yeah.
I think, yeah, okay. So basically, when we were doing the research, there's one word that stood out for me that we don't really talk about anymore. I feel like it's this whole thing of we don't want cancel culture to come for us, but it's a thing of promiscuity. And we don't hear that often enough because it's obviously taboo and there's negative connotations attached to it, but that's what it is. Sleeping around is promiscuous.
Yeah.
Engaging in sex with different partners is promiscuity. And so I want to relay a story that I found. It's not a recent story. It came out in 2017, but I feel like it's so appropriate for what we're talking about. And it was mortifying to read this, but this is how the story goes. So stick with me. There was this young lady who said it was a Twitter thread. And she was basically saying this is what happened to one of her friends. So this girl met this guy on Tinder, which is a dating app, very famous dating app. And she met this guy on Tinder and everything was going great. You know, there was chemistry and he was absolutely amazing. He was to die for. He was, so well-spoken and everything was absolutely amazing. So anyway, as things would go, they cut the dinner short. And they decided, okay, they're going to go to whoever's place. And then they started, and then they slept with each other. So first time meeting this guy, okay, they've been chatting on Tinder. First time meeting him, they go and then they engage in sex. And anyway, so this guy, this is a bit explicit for some sensitive viewers, but he came all over her face and her chest area. So anyway, then after that, he went home. The next morning, she wakes up and she sees that there's sores like on her where he came, the areas where he came.
Oh, let me watch my face. Sorry.
Yeah. And so it was all over the mouth area and the chest area.
Okay.
So she decided she's going to first send him a message. So the link is in our description if you want to go read the full story. I'm just basically cutting it down for you. So she goes and she sends this guy a message and she's like, listen, I just want you to know that I broke out, like there's stuff on my face and on my chest area where you came. And so I'm going to go to the doctor. Anyway, she goes to the doctor tests it out and he's like, you know what? We cannot identify what this is. Like it's not a normal STI. So you need to go and we need to send you to a specialist dermatologist, and he or she needs to check what's happening. So she goes to the dermatologist and the results come back. Mm-hmm. And they say to her, ma'am, we see parasites underneath the surface of the breakout or whatever you had. Mm-hmm. But these parasites are not common, like it's not normal parasites. The only way you can get these parasites is if you have engaged in sex with an animal or with the dead. So she's like freaking out. So she decides, okay, I need to do my own research. So she does a quick search and she finds out that this guy works at a morgue. So he engaged in necrophilia. which is sleeping with the dead. And that's how she got these parasites all over her
and
face.
that was a one night thing.
That was a one night stand.
From somebody that she doesn't know, from
Someone
a
that
bar.
she doesn't know. She just met him on the app Tinder. And that was it.
Exactly. That's the point. That's the point about this unhealthy
Yes.
lifestyles.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to bring across, because we try to open somebody's mind out there,
Exactly.
showing you that you're not really single.
No.
Because at one point or the other, these things, health-wise,
Yes.
will catch up with you.
Yes.
If you like it or not, at
Yes.
some point it will catch up.
So we also, on that topic of the health, we came across some articles that speaks about the price to pay for promiscuity, which is sleeping around.
That is a price.
So the opening question on one of the articles is, can promiscuity threaten your longevity, so your lifespan? And the short answer is definitely yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, you open yourself up to more STDs and STIs, and you also open yourself up to other more life-threatening diseases. Your chance of prostate cancer, cervical cancer, even throat cancer can increase, because obviously people engage in all sorts of, wherever there's a hole, stick it in. That's basically how it is. And that's the reason why people don't realize that they open themselves up to so much more health risks. Not just the STDs and the STIs, there's some really damaging effects that it can have on your body, not just on your body physically, but mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, those are also far-reaching. I mean, if you think about it, we just experienced a COVID pandemic, but it wasn't too long ago that we had the HIV pandemic.
Yes.
And that is basically rooted in sexual transmission, and it's found it traveled through promiscuity.
Yes.
So and we also see how that permeated through society, and it causes hurt and disease and.
You know what's rather interesting, and my show is about Pastor Leanne, they call it the inside show.
Yes.
So we try to get insights on everything. We want to understand, and today we're on this sex revolution. So what we say here, God never created sex
Yes.
to be on the other side of a woman.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not meant to be.
Yes.
And you mentioned it there in that storyline. And when you start discussing these things and you look literally at it, you see how evil it is.
Yeah.
Because as much as you like to say, oh, it's okay, it's not okay.
No.
It's not meant to be. That's why we sit with all this illness and sicknesses and disease and stuff
Exactly.
all around.
Exactly.
And the emotional implication, what could that be?
So they were saying that research shows that people who are promiscuous tend to show signs of either depression or anxiety or some sort of mental illness.
Or guilt.
Even guilt, because, like, for instance, something happened to them. It's mostly they call it the outbursts of something deeper. So there's an underlying issue that you're not dealing with,
Yeah.
and you're using this as an outlet to block out the noise. It's the same as they actually link it to drinking and smoking or drugs or whatever. It's the same kind of promiscuity.
mechanism,
It's
yeah.
the same kind of coping mechanism, exactly.
And that's
so
what
that's the reason why it's linked to
And
mental health.
that is interesting, because I think it's symptomatic. It's like we think there's a sexual revolution that is just spurred on by feelings of sex, but it's really something else. It's symptomatic. It could be symptomatic of what is happening in society,
Yeah.
about hurt and pain and the breaking down of certain social structures, how people are relating, even depression. So people are reaching out, and I think sex can often also just be a way of expressing or the way of feeling something, because intimacy enables us to feel something. And many times people want that deeper human connection and even a spiritual connection, and they do not quite know how about getting it.
Yes,
and
yes.
so instead they just attach themselves to something that can give them that type of expression. So I think that helps.
They were even
Before you go, Leanne, there was a speaker once here. She was one of our congregational members, live now in America. She's also in movies and acting. What's her name?
Sharon Shields.
Sharon Shields.
Yes.
So Sharon Shields had a program on one of Xavier's Friday nights. And
yes.
Can you remember?
At the factory.
At
Yes,
the factory.
I remember
You remember
that.
what she did?
Yes, I remember.
Tell us the story. Can you relate that?
Yeah, so she did like a skit to show what it's like when you sleep around with different people. So what she did is, there's this guy and this girl, they sleep together, and every time you sleep with someone, there's a string attached
Yeah.
to you.
No, what she did was there was a bed on
There was
there.
a bed.
So she
Yes.
placed the lady on there.
Yes.
And then every time when there's another guy, she load him on the bed.
Yes.
And she load him on the bed.
Yes.
And she load him on the bed. So you don't think like that. Because the in thing today is to, I don't know, it's a word that they use. They sleep around and they count. They even have a count. It's like,
Yeah.
who's my...
It's your body count.
They call it the
They
body.
call it the body count.
People, it's unbelievable. But you know how sickening that is
And if you-
to expose your prime beautiful body
Yeah.
to all these illnesses that you don't know. I mean, really, I'm going to be a little abrupt a minute here.
Yes.
Do you know if that guy even wash himself? I mean, really,
No,
what do you
honestly,
know about him?
exactly.
Do you even know what is his health condition? Do you
Exactly.
know?
His
Do you know
hygiene.
where?
Did he sanitize?
Yeah.
Did you even know if that
Definitely.
guy who was with his girl last night?
Yes.
And the night before, and the night before, and the night before. He's also counting. So it's your 40 count and his 40 count makes it the 80 count. And
Yes.
that 80 count is like in your body.
Do you know what's so alarming about this? Body count is actually what it's actually a term to, if there's a large massacre or if there's some tragedy, they say the body count is, which means that the number of deaths is
Yes,
this much.
yes.
So in essence, that is what you're doing, because if you think about it, that's how damning it is. When you say that this is my body count, you basically kill parts of yourself off, you kill parts of other people off. That is because the wages of sin is death. So from a spiritual perspective, that's how I view it. Your
Also
body
attached.
count.
You're also attached because you form certain soul bonds with people.
Yeah.
And so you have these soul ties with different people that you may not necessarily even be aware of what you bonded to. So the hygiene we can wash off, the disease you can take an antibiotic for.
Yes.
But the spiritual ties is where I think the real work will happen. Because I don't believe that anybody who is spiritually wholesome or fed or a whole person will go out and engage in these types of risky
Yes.
behaviors. So really, it just seems more apparent that it's very symptomatic of something that is happening internally in people.
And you know what? My experience, and you'll be able to say a little more there, Leanne. My experience with all these sexual partners and singleness, there's literally a spiritual death coming in, and the person's joy is gone. The one day the person was in love with God, and the one day the person was raising hands and worshiping God. The one day the person was in a choir singing for God, and the next day it's like almost dead is with the person.
Definitely.
It's like, so what is that? Because somehow it have a spiritual impact as well.
Definitely.
Because when you save, you receive Jesus Christ as Lord and as your personal Savior. And when you receive Jesus as Lord and as personal Savior, you receive the Holy Spirit. And when you receive the Holy Spirit, there's conviction, there's guilt. The truth is, I don't know how many times you need to do that and keep the spirituality up. What I mean by that is, how many times do you want to change sex partners and try to think that you can keep your spirituality up, because it's not going to balance. It will come to death at some point. So I'm not sitting here on this side judging people and trying to let people feel guilty. That's not my job. What I'm saying here, God is the one who judge, but it will be unfair not to give the other side of the narrative, because the movies are giving a narrative. Friends are giving narratives. People feel that that's old school, but they don't give you the facts about it. That when you have 6 glasses of wine and you drive, that you're going to have an accident. They don't give you the facts about when you sleep with multiple partners, that there will be an emotional implication. Yeah. There will be a spiritual implication, and there will be a health implication.
Yes. Definitely. I was just reading some of the obviously we were talking about the things that people are engaging in, the liberated sex revolution, and the different styles. You were talking about trends and things like that, and people, like, there's some people that says, yeah, but there's so I'm going to read some of the things, facts to remember, and this is from an article that was on News 24. It's also in our in our link so you can go over it. I'm just going to read what it says here. An international organization that focuses on HIV and AIDS education gives the following tips if you are sexually active, because they were saying that, well, HIV and AIDS is now more controllable, so people think that gives them the liberty to, still go sleep around, but they don't understand that the death count for HIV and AIDS, even though there's these drugs that elongate the lifespan, is still quite prominent. So they were saying here that unprotected vaginal or anal sex puts you at risk of contracting HIV and other STIs, as we've already said. During unprotected sex, HIV can be transmitted via bodily fluids such as blood, semen, and vaginal fluid, pre-cum, or anal mucus. And there's this new trend, doggy styles and stuff like that. But it says here that there is a higher risk of HIV infection during anal sex because the lining of the anus is more delicate than the lining of the vagina, which means that it wasn't meant for that. Again, it's God's structure. Why does God create all these things for a specific purpose? This is the reason why. It is more easily damaged, which means that there's providing entry points for HIV and other STIs. It's easier.
So just on that one point, that is also a good point to address with married couples.
Yes.
You might just say, I'm married.
Yeah.
We can try all styles.
Yes.
And even anal style, if you
Yeah.
want to do. There's a better name for it. I don't
Yes,
know. It's just like,
Yeah.
you're not getting embarrassed, right?
No, I'm married.
But so all I'm saying at the
Yeah.
end of the day, then the lady pick up illnesses.
Yes.
And they don't change partners. They're happily married.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden she doesn't know where is it from.
Exactly.
It is because they not doing it. I don't mind. They can do what they want to do. But go and look at that as well as a possibility
Most
of your
definitely.
illnesses, of cervical cancer and all those other stuff. Go and have a look at that as
Yes.
possibilities.
Exactly.
Remind me not to invite Dr. Mary back because it seems like you're doing pretty good with health issues.
Yeah, no, I'm reading up on this, but I can see that Dr. Mary is in the comment section here, so she's definitely in on this conversation. And then there's just a few more. It says that the risk of HIV transmission during unprotected oral sex is very low, but there is a risk of STI. So people are like, well, I'm not engaging in, anal sex or vaginal sex, so I'm doing oral sex, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there's still a possibility of contracting STIs. And then they say here, lastly, people living with HIV are more likely to pass the virus on to others in the first few months after infection, as there are higher levels of the virus in the bodily fluids at this point. So that means that you sleeping around with everybody, like you were saying, the body count, this person just contracted HIV, and it's the first few months, which means that they go around, they infect you, you go around, you infect. So the infection increases.
Yeah. Sounds like the book of Leviticus. We were given all those rules and those regulations in the book of Leviticus, but it was just so that they could exercise safety in how they lived, and they would understand the reason why food was infected or things. It was just a way of doing
It's
things.
a good guide.
Yeah, it is.
And
But this
yeah.
thing, Pastor Carl, I'm just thinking, I think that when we speak as Christians, if we speak about our view on that, or our displeasure in what we are viewing, it's really the fact that we see so much hurt and so much damage in people.
It's true.
More than anything else. And I think when we speak against those weird single constructs, it's more saying, there's another way. There's a healthier way. Come into a different perspective. Allow us to teach our own children about sex instead of the world constantly badgering us with their unhealthy viewpoints. So the reason why we do that is because we want to have a healthy conversation. We want to have healthy relationships. We want our sexual expression to come from a healthy place. So it's not because you want to be judgmental on people who engage in certain things. We want to say is like, we need to point out that there's certain things that you are doing that is causing damage to yourself. And there is a better way, and we can speak about the original intention of unity. We can speak about the original intention of sexual intimacy. We can speak about that because that will give us a greater insight into how our behavior, it should inform our behavior, not dictate our behavior. It informs our feelings. It assists our relationships in becoming more whole and ultimately much more fruitful and much more enjoyable. People never evaluate the fruit of what is happening. They can even take God out. But these things that people engage in, these Tinder experiences, they are unhealthy and they will give you an unhealthy fruit. So open up your mind and your eyes to something that is founded and rooted in something strong and healthy. If you're broken, you will do these things. Seek the wholeness first. And you'll keep your health in check. You'll keep everything in check.
And by all means, we're not saying that temptation will not be there. That's not what we say.
Yes.
What we try to say, if you look at the book of Galatians 5, there's one word there, self-control. So just as you need to control yourself to not to indulge in too much food, or as you have to control yourself to look at your heart in the sense of not getting in with butter, too much butter and all those oily things are not good. You need to balance yourself. There's a discipline that goes with that, a lifestyle. And the interesting part, we can do that because people are very disciplined. If you see how they rock up at the gyms, and if you look at the six packs and how well they look, they really look good. So there is a form of discipline that's with them. They can say yes and no. They can say yes, no for cake. But it's the same discipline for no for
Risky sexual behavior.
Their sexual behavior. It's kind of the same discipline that's needed. So is it going to be easy? No. But you can walk away. You can turn the other way and you can literally say, no, this is not what I want for my life. This is really not what I want. Leandra, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you mentioned something on one of the shows. I don't know which show it is. And this is the narrative that I'm driving, and I'm about to close and most probably just ask a little closing remarks from Pastor Leanne. But if you look at the call for purity, and on one of the shows, I can't remember which show it was, but you discussed something like that. It's like when you say you are a virgin, it is like, huh?
Something's wrong.
You're sick, man. There's something wrong. You don't fit in when you're a virgin. But the other narrative is okay narrative. So what we say here, and this is what the Inside Show is all about. I'm addressing that girl that feels, you mustn't feel bad when you're a virgin. And you mustn't feel bad when you wait for your man. So will you get another guy that's a virgin? It's not guaranteed, but it's about you. It's about your fullness and wholeness.
Exactly.
It's about who you think you are.
Exactly.
It's about your walk at the end. Can you most probably share about that? Did you receive any flag sometime to mention that on set? Did people inbox you, say you think you're wonderful and stuff like that?
So just to bring Pastor Leanne into context, so I'm almost 30 years old and I'm a virgin because I decided that I will wait for my husband. And it's like Doc said, people always say, yeah, but there's no guarantee that he's going to be a virgin. But it's like you said, it's a personal choice that I made. And it's about what my agreement or my relationship with Christ is all about. This is a reflection of my relationship with Christ. It's not a reflection of his relationship with Christ. But I pray towards a specific goal when it comes to what he does and I pray that his choices are in line with my choices. But for me, it's a personal choice because you mentioned something so interesting in the beginning, Pastor Lee, and you were saying that it's a personal choice that you wait for that person, and there shouldn't be a need to feel bad, or there shouldn't be, and I made that up in my mind a long time ago, especially when I see where people are and how society has changed and the damaging effects it has on the moral fiber of society in general. The individual choice that you make has a direct impact on everybody else around you. It has an impact on governments, it has an impact on communities, it has an impact on families, it has an impact on the world. So this is just my personal thing. I don't think anybody would outrightly come to me and say, you think you're wonderful, or they'd say something, but I know behind my back people will probably be speaking, because I've heard people say there must be something wrong with her. Maybe she's lesbian. Maybe
no. But you know why I'm driving. You know why I'm driving. Sorry, Pastor Leanne. You know why I'm driving this narrative. I'm driving this narrative because girls have the guts to go on live on TV. And I'm talking about public platforms. Not even this inside show platform that is just a sector on the on the YouTube.
Yes.
I'm talking about it's freely available on SABC 123E. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
They boldly share how many partners they have.
Exactly.
It's open. It's there. It's right there. They don't care. But the minute you say you're a virgin and you don't have partners, sex partners, let me just define. Then there's something wrong with the other side, but nothing wrong with their side. Precisely the point that we try to drive. The narrative is out there. That's good. What was bad is good now.
Yeah.
And what's good is bad now.
I've even had somebody ask me, I don't know what kind of sexual preference it is, but they asked me, oh, so do you prefer pleasing yourself? Is that your sexual preference?
Yeah.
And
But
I
it's,
was like, what? What
But I
does
mean,
that even mean?
Given the fact that we see in so many different categories of, our relationship or how we define ourselves in relation to sex,
Yes.
it can be valid because it's like, okay, you are virgin because why?
Yeah. There
or-
must be something wrong.
Yeah, no, or what extent of it? People are looking kind of the loophole of it.
Yes,
and I
yes.
think it's beautiful that you are a virgin deliberately, because sometimes people will be a virgin because out of default.
Yes.
Because they can't have relationships with people.
Exactly.
They can't. But when you make your virginity a decision and a covenant between you and God, you give it a greater context.
Yes.
And you give it a greater drive, and it also informs how you would react to temptation. It's like, no, I'm doing this because this is the reason why, not because I don't have anyone to sleep with.
Yes.
And so that the fact that you're so deliberate about it is where the power and the beauty lies.
Yes.
And I think it's beautiful that you profess it, because it could also make you a target. I want
true.
to get that virgin.
That's true. No, it is.
Yeah, well, let them start hunting.
them
That's
try.
what men should do, eh?
Yeah, but it's
listen,
beautiful.
Listen, most probably, thank you so much, Pastor Leanne. Most probably, I just wanted to also mention here today that when you're out there and you have this lifestyle, this sex revolution lifestyle, there's hope.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make you happy at the end. Or this hole, this void, this emptiness remain. So at the end of the day, Jesus Christ helps us in our weaknesses.
Definitely.
And he will never judge us.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where you're from. You could be like David, making a ton of mistakes. And God still called him a man after my own heart. You could be like Moses, who killed somebody somewhere, and the Lord just still used him to open the Red Sea and lead his people out.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying in essence, we are not sitting here and judging people. We are saying it's about time that somebody show that there is another narrative.
It
Yes.
is, yeah.
There's hope. There's hope for somebody. Complete hope. Well, believe it or not, we're at the end of our show. I would love Pastor, first of all, wants to thank Pastor Lee-Ann Gonsalves for her availability. And I just want to most probably just to give us some closing remarks there. It will be so good just to, and thank you again for coming on our show. It was so kind of you to accept my invitation. You did such a wonderful job here. You let me look good today in both ways. Even just having surrounded by two beautiful women around me, let me just look good in general. So, Pastor Leanne, thank you for coming. And what's your closing remarks?
Oh, well, I really enjoyed it, and I didn't feel the hour at all. It was a fascinating conversation, and I admire your courage to have the conversation and to introduce those topics, even if it is just for thought for the listeners out there. And then it's beautiful that we can still elevate purity, and it's beautiful that we can still have a narrative and be courageous enough to stand for something in this day and age. When we compromise on so many things, it causes us to lose the fiber of who we are as a people, and we lose the voice and the power of that voice when we ourselves compromise. So, calling holiness back to a body of Christ is beautiful. And I completely stand by that thought and that sentiment. And we love people. And we want to make sure that people don't feel like they're attacked, but instead, show another way, speak another language, get the healing that you need. And you will find a pastor who will be prepared to walk with you through that journey. And it is something that can give you a tremendous, tremendous testimony.
And sex could also be an addiction, eh? We didn't even touch on that.
Yeah, we didn't.
It could be even an addiction that, just like a drug addiction.
Yeah.
And sex can be an addiction at any point in time. Do you want to give us some closing remarks from your side? Are you good?
No, I'm good. I just want to say thank you for having this conversation, Doc. We
Yeah.
discussed it in great detail these past few weeks, actually.
When we started out with this
When we
conversation,
started out, we were
oh
like, and
my
I'm like,
God.
but Doc, you've been writing the book and you've been doing your research. And when I read through I read through chapter 3 of the
Yeah.
book, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Okay.
I'm grateful, and thank you
Yes.
to you, Pastor Leanne, for sharing your
Yeah.
insights on the topic.
So, do you maybe know what my wife is going to discuss tomorrow?
Oh, on Thursday.
On Thursday?
Yes, on Thursday she is discussing life with endometriosis. She's got a guest in who lives with endometriosis, and she's just going to bring insights into what that is and the experience of women who do live with the disorder. So yeah, that's what
Thank
she's
you.
going to be talking about.
Thank you. Everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in again on the Inside Show. It was so good having you with us here today. And again, we are not sitting on this side trying to judge anyone. We just want to give another narrative. There is another flip to the coin. You cannot just accept anything that the multimedia platforms throw at you. You cannot just take anything that your community is doing. You cannot just accept anything that people or your friends want to tell you to do. You have got a right in your own, and you've got your own body. You can run your life the way you feel like it. I'm not here to tell you how to run your life, but all I'm saying, there is a better way to do certain things. From my side, please subscribe and hit that bell. We love you, and God loves you best. And goodbye for now, and see you next time. Good morning, everybody. It is so good to have you here with me.
Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team.
Imagine how quick that vision will come into the picture. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months. This morning is all about the leadership and influence.